Kill everybody. If that order was really given from a U.S. command center, watching a small boat on a live drone feed in the Caribbean, then we are not just talking about a controversial strike. We are talking about the moment when America's own leaders chose to walk right up to the red line of a war crime, and then tried to talk their way back from it on television. According to reporting that broke this story open, senior officials oversaw a U.S. drone strike that sank a boat and killed most of the people on board. Then, as the wreckage burned on the water, 2 survivors were seen clinging to the remains of the vessel. Instead of ordering a rescue, a second strike was allegedly launched, not against armed combatants, but against shipwrecked, defenseless men. Under any modern reading of the laws of war, that is not collateral damage. It is exactly what the Geneva Conventions were written to forbid. That is why legal experts call this the textbook definition of a war crime. And yet, rather than confronting that possibility honestly, the key players have offered us a moving target. At first, Pete Hegseth, now serving as the civilian head of the Pentagon, boasted that he watched the operation live. He claimed he knew exactly who was in that boat and exactly what they represented. It was a performance of strength, tailored for a political base that equates toughness with righteousness. But when the allegation of a second strike on survivors surfaced, the story shifted. Suddenly, Hegseth said he did not actually see everything. He said he moved on to another meeting. He invoked the fog of war, the chaos of explosions and smoke and digital feeds. The man who once presented himself as all-seeing now insisted he was half-blind. This is where the deeper problem begins. Modern drone warfare allows leaders to watch death in real time, with the comfort and distance of a screen. It creates the illusion of total knowledge and total control. When things go well, officials brag about precision and intelligence. When things go horribly wrong, that same system becomes a convenient blur, an alibi made of pixels and uncertainty. There is another layer the public rarely hears about. Who will actually be held responsible if this is ever investigated as a war crime? History tells us that the people most exposed are not television personalities turned defense secretaries. It is the officers who relay the orders, the drone operators who push the button, and the sailors whose names the public will never learn. Political leaders enjoy the symbolism of command, but too often they outsource the legal and moral risk downward. That is what makes the handling of this crisis so corrosive. Hegseth appears ready to shift blame toward the admiral overseeing special operations, the career military leadership that has spent decades operating under strict rules of engagement. We have seen this pattern before. Generals and intelligence chiefs removed not for breaking the law, but for refusing to bend it far enough for a president's political needs. Meanwhile, America's reputation is not being damaged in some abstract way. Every time the United States is seen bombing shipwreck survivors instead of detaining, interrogating, and putting them on trial, it sends a clear message to friends and enemies alike. The self-proclaimed defender of a rules-based order is willing to bend those rules when it feels threatened or embarrassed. That makes it harder to build coalitions, harder to demand accountability from dictators, and much more dangerous for any American soldier captured on the battlefield. And this is where domestic politics comes roaring back in. Voters in places like Tennessee and Virginia are not reading every footnote of international law, but they understand something deeper. They do not want to be the country that tortures, that bombs civilians, that pardons convicted terrorists while preaching law and order at home. They are already frustrated by rising costs, fragile healthcare, and a sense that the system is rigged in favor of those at the very top. A foreign policy that looks chaotic, vengeful, and corrupt does not feel like strength to them. It feels like one more symptom of a government that has stopped taking its responsibilities seriously. Layer on top of that the coming wave of disruption from artificial intelligence. As Senator Mark Warner has warned, white-collar starter jobs are already being hollowed out. Young graduates are watching AI systems take over many of the roles they trained for. If the same political leadership that shrugs at alleged war crimes is also unwilling to plan for that economic shock, why should anyone trust them with either peace or prosperity? When people see impunity abroad combined with insecurity at home, they start to feel that the entire social contract has been completely rewritten without their consent and always against their interests. In the end, this story is not just about a single boat or a single night in the Caribbean. It is about what kind of power the United States chooses to be in the 21st 21st century? A power that hides behind the fog of war while civilians die on camera? Or a power that is willing to confront its own failures, enforce its own laws, and prove that strength and accountability can exist in the same sentence? So here is the real question for all of us watching. When leaders give orders that may cross the line into war crimes, do you believe they should face the same justice as the soldiers who carry them out? Or has America quietly decided that some people are simply too powerful to be held to account?